Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the 80th anniversary of the New Zealand Chinese Association. I have a very interesting gentleman sitting right by me, and let's introduce him right now. Mr. Don Brash.
Good to meet you.
Thank you very much for being part of the program.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm delighted to be here on this 80th anniversary of the New Zealand Chinese Association. It's a privilege to be talking to you, and you're privileged to be about to watch a remarkable video. The first known Chinese immigrant to New Zealand arrived in 1842. It was naturalized in 1852. But the life of those early Chinese settlers in New Zealand was very, very tough, and this video reminds us all of that. Dr. James Ing, himself a long-standing New Zealand citizen, tells the story of the difficulties which those early Chinese immigrants faced. The poll tax made it difficult for Chinese immigrants to come to New Zealand. Almost no Chinese women were allowed to come to New Zealand. Almost no Chinese immigrants were naturalized as New Zealanders until 1926, and it wasn't until 1936 that Chinese immigrants became eligible for the taxpayer-funded pension scheme. Life was very tough, and this video is a timely reminder of the difficulties which those early Chinese immigrants faced.
Thanks very much for your personal reflections. I've got a few questions to ask you now, because I want to know what makes you tick, and I'm sure the viewers will be very happy to hear these questions. Right now, what is your favourite book? What is your favourite book of all time that you like reading?
I find that a tough question to answer. I've just written my own book, and I of course enjoyed writing that. Sure. I called it Incredible Luck, because I feel incredibly lucky to be born at this time in human history, and in fact in a place like New Zealand,
yes,
as most of the viewers will also feel. We have access now to free education, free healthcare, and a society where basically people are free to do largely what they want. That was not, of course, true when the early Chinese immigrants came to New Zealand.
Sure, thanks for that. Now currently there's a lot of mayhem and hysteria around the referendum, the changing of the flag. What's your opinion? What do you think about changing the country's name?
There's quite a lot of support for that too. People would like to call New Zealand Aotearoa or Aotearoa New Zealand. I personally don't favour that change. I think New Zealand is a good name. It reflects our history. And indeed, Aotearoa is a relatively recent innovation. It wasn't the name which early Maori called the country which was New Zealand. In fact, there was no real concept of New Zealand as a country until the mid-19th century. So I don't favour a change of name, I must say, but that may date me a bit.
Sure. I appreciate your comments. And I have one other question to ask you, if you don't mind. What's been a most impressionable moment of your life?
Ooh. The most impressionable moment of my life. I'm not sure I can answer that question very effectively. I've had a lot of impressionable moments. I've been very fortunate, as I mentioned a moment ago. I've had remarkable parents who, among other things, have given me experience of other countries. And I've been fortunate, for example, to visit China on 12 occasions through my life. And each one of those occasions was a moment which had an enormous impact on me. I mean, China is a remarkable country. I'm delighted to live in New Zealand, I have to say, but China itself is currently doing remarkably well in world terms.
Sure. Great. Hey, thanks for the opportunity, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much. Now the next interesting character that I'd like to introduce to you this afternoon is sitting right next to me, and his name is David Cunliff. Thank you very much.
Brandon, nice to see you.
Thank you. So just wanting to hear from you now your reflections on what the crowd is about to see. So that'd be nice to get some feedback from you.
So if I'm giving my feedback to your viewers before they've seen the movie, I better not spoil the ending. Look, I think it's a real privilege to be here with you all today and to take some part in celebrating the history of the Chinese and especially the Cantonese communities here in New Zealand. Chinese communities are very, very important, very hard-working, and a very well-known part of the broader New Zealand community, and it's obviously a part that has a huge role in our shared future. In order to understand it, it's been helpful for me to watch this movie that you're about to see and to hear a little more of the stories of the history of Chinese settlement in New Zealand. For many Pākehā, we have a sort of a distant recollection of the importance of the Chinese work in the goldfields, particularly in Otago. We know that conditions were really, really harsh. We know that were made worse by punitive immigration laws and the dreaded poll tax, which our former Prime Minister Helen Clark formally apologised for during the last Labour-led government. But it didn't end there. As the movie goes on to show, there were various tragedies along the way that helped forge the identity of the New Zealand Chinese community. The wreck of the SS Ventnor, the untimely murder of Uncle Joe in Wellington, and the history of settlement of the first wives and families, which of course are part of what has given heritage to the very important Chinese community that's now of long standing in New Zealand. So if that's where we've come from, where are we now? I guess one of the things that's really important for me is that we are all Kiwis, and that the Chinese community of long standing here is as Kiwi as anybody else, and help to reflect Kiwi values, the Kiwi way of life, that thing that's kind of hard to define, but it's got something to do with being relaxed, to take everybody as you find them, to work off the assumption that we're all worth the same, and that therefore we're all free to celebrate each other's cultures and heritage. Out of that, as we look forward, I think it's really important for us to think carefully about what it is that makes us, as New Zealanders of different heritages, all Kiwis together. Here's some stuff that I and our party are really firm on. The first is that we're all worth the same. Every Kiwi from wherever should have the opportunity to participate fully in New Zealand life, and the laws and the policies of the government of the day, of whatever colour or stripe, should support that full participation that allows everybody to maximise their potential, whether it's in education, healthcare, housing, job opportunities, business growth and entrepreneurship. All of those things matter, and they should all be equally available to all. We know that New Zealand society is changing really quickly. Auckland in particular has one of the fastest rates of demographic change anywhere in the world. And that means that we're going to have to work just a wee bit harder to make sure that our defining Kiwi values and our New Zealand way of life is understood by newer arrivals and becomes part of our shared future. I think that the New Zealand-born Chinese community has a hugely important role to play, particularly with newer arrivals, in helping to ensure that those values are understood, shared and celebrated. So for all the hard work that's gone on in the past, for all the camaraderie and the Kiwiness that we share, and for the shared endeavour that is our shared future, I thank you, and I'm glad to be part of it with you.
Now David, I have some questions for you, if you don't mind, that will sort of get into the psyche behind the name David. Who is David? The first question is, what is your most fascinating book that you like reading?
Oh, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan from childhood days, and I'm really, that was before the movie was made, I'm that old. But there's something there about some of the founding myths from my heritage, Celtic and Norse, which has been woven into a novel, and it's the novel of quest and of the battle between good and evil, and the triumph of good.
Nice. Currently there's some mayhem and hysteria around referendum and the changing of the flag. What do you think about changing the name of New Zealand?
Well, firstly, on the flag referendum, can I say that I think it's a massive diversion. I personally have no problem with changing the flag and updating our identity a little. I think that's probably more useful than not. But let's all be clear about why this is happening. It's a feel-good exercise that is deliberately diverting people from the tougher issues of the day, and I think it's no substitute for us thinking hard about our shared economic and social future. let's do that as well, but let's not lose our focus. In terms not of the flag, but of our name, I think we're morphing already a little into Aotearoa New Zealand. That reflects our bicultural heritage and our shared future.
David, what's your favourite genre of music?
Folk rock, I guess. I was just unpacking some CDs and things the other day, and historically what was on my shelf was a lot of U2 and some local op shop and Coldplay, and one of my favourites is David Gray. I'm being updated by my children, and currently Imagine Dragons is playing hot.
Thank you. Impressionable moments. What are some of your most impressionable moments, or an impressionable moment that you'd like to share with the viewers this afternoon?
Wow. Well, I grew up in small town New Zealand. I was born in the Waikato, and for my high school years lived in South Canterbury, not far out of Timaru. And cultural diversity in those days was the Catholics versus the Protestants. Everybody was white, and in the South Island there weren't even very many Māori people. So later, when I was married and after we came back from overseas, we settled in Auckland, and of course I'm now the MP for New Lynn, a very diverse electorate where almost half the folk weren't even born in New Zealand. So I'm enjoying big city diversity, I'm enjoying being part of this community, and it's quite different. Yeah, so impressionable moments. When I was a teenager, I went to an international college in the UK called Atlantic College, and for 2 years I lived amongst children from 70 countries in a boarding school environment, and that changed my outlook on the world, really broadened it, and that's been part of the basis that I brought to this work.
That's why you're attracted to this electorate?
Probably.
Quite similar then? A
little bit, yeah. There's probably more than 70 ethnicities and cultures represented in New Lynn.
Great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, Brendan.
Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks. You have just been watching the New Zealand Cantonese Chinese History program. This has also been proudly sponsored to you by Mandarin Times Pages.